once again, you're the star of the show. Look, your people are out there. Yeah, there's your people. Hi, everybody. It's Robert Earl out here on another windy day at the Eco Ranch in far west Texas. Cascade the Wonder Dog, and we're still wondering what it is he does around here, but he loves what he does. Hey, I've got a cold. Those things happen sometimes. It's winter, and people bring viruses, and I catch them, so bear with me even though I don't sound real good. I wanted to show you a vlog and also part 3 of the mechanical room build. We finished the entire mechanical room with the exception of me going out with my steel brush and brushing off all the bottles. That'll come a little bit later, but the room's done. I wanted to show you the room. Now, there won't be a part 4. This is the end. The mechanical room is built, but I am going to do a separate video on the plumbing inside because that's kind of unique. If you're building an off-grid facility, you may want to see what we have here. I'm going to cover a few other things. I'm going to introduce you to a couple sets of, or a set of woofers and the woofer that we have here, a work exchange person, and a couple other things. So bear with me for a moment. I'm going to get behind the camera, give you a little tour of the mechanical room, at least from the outside, and we'll move on. So we built this to be the main approach to the house, but typically most people, when they come to visit, they come down that road there, they see the driveway, and they come up here. So they come into what I would call the side door. But we built this to be the main approach. So as we finish the mechanical room, and I do hear the wind, so please, again, like I always say, don't comment and don't write, well, wait for a day that isn't windy, because I'll be 107 when that happens. So the top of the mechanical room with Wellesley, let's see if we can get real close to Wellesley. There. With Wellesley, the drunken hermit, minimalist hermit, living up on top of the on top of what looks like a turret, and in fact is a turret. I wanted to show you that because we built that turret so it looked like a turret on top of attached to the rocket stove, and what it is a chimney, and let me show you. Now from over here you can see that it is a chimney, and it is the chimney for the rocket stove. It's up at the same height as the chimney for the wood stove, and it kind of makes the whole thing seamless. Got the construction finished there. The hot water tank still has to be moved to the inside. There's actually 2 of them, but when we do the inside we'll show you that. And we planted an Afghan pine. I got that through the state of Texas, and it should grow here very well. So we've got an Afghan pine, a good size one, because I'm old and can't grow one from seed. The odds are I'll probably be too old to realize that it's here if I grow it from seed. And that is the completed mechanical room. Now over here where the water tank is, you can see we started to bring the bottles around the water tank. We'll eventually do that so that it is it has the appearance of a turret. We'll do the 3rd water tank, again with the appearance of a turret. But the front of the house is fairly done. I do have to put the walkway in, and we do have to find some shade-tolerant plants over where the ducks are. But that is the look we're going for throughout the whole house. And we'll get there with a little bit of help from work exchange people, and a little bit of help from those that help me by donating a little bit to what we're doing here. You know, so we move over here by the wall that we're working on right now, and in a bit I'll introduce you to Jeremy, our work exchange guest who's been working on this. But we've been working on the wall here in the guest bedroom, finishing it all the way up, and finishing this wall up here, so that we first of all can put the things we have in storage back in the guest bedroom and also on the other side of the wall. But you know, I mentioned donations from people, and I'm not going to make a pitch for donations, but the donate button's up there on the main channel. But I had some guests here. They came and camped overnight, and they were from one of the premier green or ecology-oriented organizations in the country. They stayed, and we were talking, and I mentioned that we were building, I had to build a new garden for my microgreens, and I'd run a little short of chicken wire. I needed 40 feet of chicken wire, but we used up all our money for the month, so it'd have to wait till next month. When they left, which they only stayed overnight. And when they left, I found tucked underneath a pot in the in the kitchen, I found $30, which is more than enough to go ahead and buy that chicken wire to finish this out so we can plant, because right now as I'm filming this, this is the waxing moon, and if you plant by the moon like I do, you know that the best time to plant on the waxing, the best time to plant things that grow above ground is the waxing moon. So we'll get it all done now thanks to the chicken wire. Another thing I wanted to mention, because I was surprised how much of an effect it had on me, was these folks were lovely people, and they were really, really committed to living, or to the sustainable rhetoric, let's call it that. They were committed to the sustainable rhetoric, to the ecological rhetoric. They belong to these organizations. They believe in preserving insects and birds and blah, blah, blah. Same types of things as we do here. But I have a thing I say, and I've picked it up from, God, 20 or 25 years ago. I call it walking the talk. Now, you can talk the talk all you want about things, but you have to walk the talk. And when I say walk the talk, about 160 videos show you how we're walking the talk here. But what kind of disturbed me a little bit was these folks, their hearts were in the right place. But they brought with them several gallons of bottled water in those horrible, horrible throwaway single-use chickens. Single-use bottles and bottled water. Now, if you're going to go camping on a regular basis and you're going to walk the talk, you buy a container, a potable water container that you refill. They brought all of this water with them. And they had all these canned goods. And I couldn't help but think that, you know, if they're doing one or two things, it's great. And that helps, that little bit that we can all add up and save the planet. But some of the simpler things, like the single-use water, or buying water, we need to kind of address that a little bit closer and a little bit tighter, and realize that changing the planet, fixing some of these things like the single-use water bottles that are eventually ending up in the ocean gyres, that's not for the developing world. That's not for the other guy. It starts here. If I walk the talk, somebody will follow me. And I use these examples repeatedly of walking the talk and someone follows. You know, there was a guy by the name of Mao Zedong, did not like the way things were going in China. There was another man by the name of Fidel Castro, did not like the way things were going in Cuba. Now, you know, communists, and let's leave the politics out of it. So they started out walking the talk. They were one voice in the desert. One voice in the desert saying, this isn't right, we got to change it. Or as we had a famous Texan say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And pretty soon there were 2, and then there were 4, and then there were 16. And next thing you know, a movement was born. And these 2 men, whether you like the politics or not, they changed the world. That's what we're trying to do here. I don't want you to go away and remember me. I want you to go away and remember the movement. So walk the talk. Be one of those people that's out there screaming in the desert, I am mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And when you're done screaming, don't open up a single-use water bottle, because you are not walking the talk. Now, let's get on to some of the other stuff. Okay, so Jeremy and I are going to set the lintel on the French door. Now, this is the living room. So the 2 French doors, one's the front door and one's the back door of the living room. So when you come to the living room, you're just going to look right straight through. We have to have a lintel there. And for those of you that don't know what a lintel is, as Jeremy and I get set to pick it up, a lintel carries the weight of everything above the door. This 2x6 up here is not strong enough to handle much weight at all. And so you don't want the weight carried on the 2x6. Typically in stick construction, dimensional lumber construction, you're going to have a jack stud, a king stud, and then you'll have a header going vertically. Now, the lintel is going to take the place of all of those things, with the jack stud, king stud being taken over by the masonry work on the side here. So, Now that you've got that useless explanation out of the way, Jeremy and I are going to give ourselves hernias. We have to pick it up, turn it over, and set it. You ready?
Ready.
Let's go. Turn it. And about 10.5 inches. All right, the lintel's in. Now we're just going to build rock on top of it. I am going to screw a couple of long screws in just to hold it in place on the vertical stud. I guess you call that my king stud. But I'm going to just screw a couple of screws in just to hold it in place. But the actual weight of the masonry will hold this down. And then as we build the rest of it, it'll all lock into place. One thing you might notice from down there, and I can't see from here, this came from my friend Bill. Bill, I've mentioned him a million times. Bill has donated some money to us, which has been wonderful, but what he's done that's even been greater for us is he's donated a lot of used material that we've repurposed. This beam was one of them, and this beam was 16 feet, and he gave it to me because it had a bow in it. Well, I cut it in half, so I have two beams that don't have such a huge bow. What we've done is we've put the bow so that it's bowing up here, so if there is any give from the weight, it'll give downward. I think it was a great idea, and Bill, if you're watching this, and I know you are, this was a great use for this board, or for this timber, and thank you for it. Well, let's get on and meet my latest work exchange guest, Jeremy. All right, let's get down. All right, so Jeremy is visiting here from the Seattle area. I'll let him tell you about it, and been here for almost 3 weeks now.
Almost 3 weeks.
Yeah, almost 3 weeks. He's been a huge help. One thing about Jeremy that I don't notice in a lot of guys is I had the girls here and I complimented how wonderful the girls' work was because they're girls and girls just do things better than us guys that just plump it into place. Jeremy's work's been very meticulous and it's been very beautiful. I showed you where Wellesley's sitting, that curve there. I left him to do that curve because I couldn't have done that curve as nice. So his work's been really great. And Jeremy, you want to talk to the viewers?
Yep. Hello world, Jeremy. Been here, came out here to do some work with Robert and watched a few of his videos, including some chicken videos, which I think you all have probably seen some chicken videos at this point. It's been a great couple of weeks learning how to do masonry, how to live pretty sustainably. Robert's taught me a lot as far as the technologies you can use to, be off the grid. Yeah, and it feels very much like home at this point. We have dinner together and we have lunch together. Delicious ramen with a fresh, free-range chicken egg.
Love ramen.
The ramen's great. But yeah, I have a few more days here to help Robert with laying some more brick here and some more stone. And then unfortunately I have to move on to my next duty, which is some hurricane relief stuff in Houston.
Thank you. Yep, wonderful. So, yeah, he is leaving. He's moving on. And you know, my mother told me many years ago when I first went up to the Arctic to work on the pipeline. She was already in her early 60s, and I said, Mom, I could lose you. She said, that's right. But nothing in this world lasts forever. And it's how you deal with the changes that makes you a better person. So, yeah, he's leaving. But he's come here and he's made us a better person and better people for the visit, and hopefully I've done the same for him. So I'm going to cut here. We had a couple of people that came to visit us. They only stayed a couple of days, and they told me in advance they were staying a couple of days, and that's Andre and his son Guillaume. We did a little interview with them a few days ago. I'm going to cut it in right here, and then I'll come back with the rest of the vlog. Stay tuned! Okay, well, I'm here on a beautiful day, finally, after this horrible winter, with a couple of guests we had that came by for just a few days, and they are from Quebec. Came by to help, spend a few days, and move on, and it's move-on day for them, so I wanted to introduce you. I've got Andre and his son Guillaume came and just helped us tremendously by doing an awful lot of the screening dirt, and we must have moved probably 2 tons of rock. So, Andre, what do you think of the place?
The place is amazing. It's an amazing project that you have, Robert, and I have to say that I learned a lot from you. a passionate man and inspiring man, because this project is humongous and you just have it on your shoulder, and I'm very pleased to have been with you for these 2 days.
Well, thank you. Let me pay you what I said I would now.
You.
How about you, Gil?
I share the same opinion with my father. I think this project is awesome, but incredibly huge. And the fact that you put all your efforts in it, it's amazing. And I want to say congratulations to you, because this project, it would have scared me, but now I think it just means that nothing should scare you, because this project is the biggest project I've ever seen in my life, and that makes me confident.
The lesson there is something I've said many, many times, and I always quote Confucius when I say this. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Then I add to it something I've come up with. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but the hardest part of that journey is the single step. He said it all. I couldn't have ever said it better. You guys want to say anything in French to the people up in French Canada?
La chose que je pourrais dire, c'est si jamais vous avez l'occasion de passer, de venir ici, c'est vraiment très inspirant et c'est un endroit fantastique, désertique, mais fantastique. C'est vraiment une belle rencontre et un bel endroit.
Même chose. Rien à rajouter de plus. C'est un superbe endroit. Venez en grand nombre.
That says it all.
Merci.
Thank you, and we'll cut on to the rest of this.
Perfect.
So it's the end of the day. Jeremy and I have worked hard all day on doing some stonemasonry. You can see the lintel. We've got some stones started on it. We've got stones just out of camera sight here that we've set. We're at the point where we can't set like 50 stones a day. We just don't have the ability, because we're doing some fine work like above the lintel. But we're done with that, and there's about 3 or 4 things I wanted to show you before I end this vlog. So come along with me, and let's look at a few things we're working on. Well, I've shown this room several times before. This is where I've been growing the microgreens, and I had to enclose it in chicken wire because, of course, the chickens would get in and eat everything. Well, something got in and started eating on them, and I'm really not sure if it was the wild birds or whether we had a rat coming in, but it doesn't matter. We're ready to replant now. But we decided to, the microgreens are such a huge success around here that instead of having just this, we decided to take the room and run it out to those 2 poles there and wrap it around and plant all our the vegetables, at least until we get the greenhouse done. We'll plant our vegetables out here. We're going to use that little corner bathtub for some of the vegetables. I'm going to expand the shelving for the microgreens and some other things in here. So we've been working on that. But, you know, money's always tight, so you can see right there, there's a gap in the chicken wire. I ran out of chicken wire. I have to wait until I can afford 50 feet of 24-inch chicken wire before we can finish this. But that's okay. We've got about 10 days before we do have to plant for the spring. So hopefully we'll get that chicken wire up and get the planting done. Now there's something else we're working on too, and I want you to just kind of look through there at that gas hot water tank, because that gas hot water tank is a project we're going to do a separate video on, but I'll give you a little basic input on it right now. So you got my hand in here, but this is what's inside of a gas hot water heater. This is the core of it, the steel core. And what I always thought was cool, if you look inside, you see that pipe in here. The burner's up underneath, and it heats the water that's in here, and then the exhaust comes up this pipe. Well, it just so happens it makes a perfect rocket stove. So I am building, and I'm just going to tell you right here about it, but there'll be a complete separate video that'll go into detail about how we're building this. But we're actually going to take this, which you see here that I've started, and create a incinerating, or an incinerator that is a rocket stove that heats hot water and is a cook stove. My own design, I think, but if someone else has done it, then great minds think alike, I guess. That's one of the things we're working on. I'll show you a little more. Now out here, if you've watched any of my videos, out here last year we had some kangkong and some water chestnuts in this tub. What I've done this year is I harvested all of the water chestnuts that we grew last year and saved them to replant. So I've actually replanted about 25 water chestnuts in here that will grow up and become water chestnuts that we'll be able to eat. Now over here last year we had kangkong and our water lotuses. Now the lotuses struggled, so I'm not going to replant them this year. So I've planted this whole thing already in kangkong. And if you don't know what kangkong is, look it up. It's not quite a superfood, but it is a fantastic vegetable and it's a great supplement. We are planting our onion sets right in here. We've got the kangkong. My turmerec's looking very poorly, but I've dug it up and replanted it again. So, and we ate some fresh turmeric, and if you've never eaten fresh turmeric, it is a treat. It really is. You know, they say don't feed chickens potato peelings. There's a reason for it, but the chickens didn't read the book and they loved potato peelings. Hey, the thing is, I love this. This is just fantastic to be able to have the ability to stand here and do this and feed these chickens. I mean, to me, this is one of the things that life is all about. And I just wanted to share that moment of me peeling the carrots with the chickens with you. Because it's one of those things that you don't get to see and you don't get to do, but I mean, when you're in the middle of a hustle and bustle and you're trying to meet a schedule that some dummy made that doesn't make any sense, but it's a schedule, and you're trying to do all of these things that they, whomever you perceive them to be, make you do, sometimes it grounds you. Just to connect back with nature. And I just wanted to share that with you guys for a minute. So let's finish this up back out here by the new mechanical room, because after all, this is part 3 of the mechanical room as well as a vlog, and by my Afghan pine. The Afghan pine's been in the ground here for 5 days. We treated the soil with, we had some potting soil, some good old Texas topsoil, not the stuff we have here, some horse manure and some raw chicken manure, mixed it all up and put it in here, and it's been in the ground for 5 days and it's already showing some growth. So, and because it's an Afghan pine, hopefully it will be able to stand both the heat and the cold that we do get here right now, until man-made climate disruption raises our winter temperature, but that's a few years away. So we've covered all of that with you. Showed you some of the things I'm working on in the vlog, and with that, I guess there's nothing else to say. Oh, so there will be a separate video on the combination rocket stove that's going to be a number of things, including an incinerator and creating our domestic hot water. You will not want to miss that, because it's my own idea, and I believe it's going to work really good for our domestic hot water. Remember, the idea is zero carbon footprint. Propane, if you have propane powering a gas hot water heater, you're not at a zero carbon footprint. We'll be at a zero carbon footprint with this new rocket stove that I'm building. You'll want to see that video. So with that, it's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch in Far West Texas saying, see you later.